Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are live, and it is Super Bowl week. Live from Denver, Colorado. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of this lovely evening and super weekly start. iHeartRadio, YouTube, Instagram, X, Twitch, and TikTok. Those are where you can like and follow and subscribe to keep you up to date on the show. The show is sponsored by BetUS. When you sign up today, you'll get 125% of your bonuses and 30 risk-free bets as well when you sign up with BetUS.com. Link is in the description. You don't want to miss it. Boy, do we have a really, really good, solid one tonight. I got so much to basically cover up from here, but I'm really excited to be joining with all of you guys. My good friend Bobby Montagna of Beantown Breakdown will be joining us here in just about a few moments. But we wanted to get into this because, of course, like we said, all the coaching hires are basically all the coaching hires are filled, and we are ready to roll with the next season coming up because there's so much to really talk about along in the NFL. But with that, because we've got a lot of my really, really good friends that are out there in my hometown, first time ever that the Super Bowl will be hosted in Las Vegas. I'm not sure anybody in my hometown is going to be ready for it, but we're going to get a really good one for sure. So I do want to talk about this because now with the coaching hires basically settled. So we said before, Dan Quinn got the job at Washington. Now, for a few of those reasons, I'll get them in short, small spurts. So first of all, the reason that he got the job is because if you looked at Dan Quinn's track record, he is very infamously known for having a great defense. The Legion of Boom in Seattle. And then not to mention Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs. He has such a great defense, a great defensive mind track record. Plus, he's also been a head coach in Atlanta. So Washington has landed a solid one, but this is what's interesting about Washington because it's a brand new ownership by the Josh Harris Group. Plus two, you just got yourself a new general manager in Adam Peters, and now you've got Dan Quinn. I think that's three rock stars right from there that could possibly rejuvenate this Washington Commanders roster. Now, how will Dan Quinn really rejuvenate this team? Well, think about it before. They lost both of their star pass rushers, Chase Young and Montez Sweat. They've got barely any pass rushers. Now, the secondaries also had taken a hit this past season. So there's going to be something that Dan Quinn could definitely figure out. Now, this draft is not as heavy with edge rushers, but you could go and possibly trade one. They have the number 2 overall pick in the draft. So there is lots and lots of options that you could do from here. Plus, the money's going to be a lot larger, so you're going to end up spending for big-time quality players. And this is going to be a team that's going to want to compete in this division. I mean, you got to think about it. The Cowboys now have lost both of their big-time coordinators. They lost Kellen Moore last season to the Chargers, who's now on Philadelphia's coaching staff. And then they lost Dan Quinn to the Commanders as now the head coach. So there's a significance for this, and it all ties into Dallas. Jerry Jones, as we've said, meddling owner, can't seem to get away from the social media realm, let alone media cameras everywhere, without basically saying something to the media about this. It's as crazy as it is. But the big thing that I always said is that the Cowboys, you can't take most of your moments for granted. So now Dan Quinn is a head coach again in Washington. Kellen Moore was with the Chargers, didn't really get at least a fair shot to basically see what he does as an offensive coordinator, but now he's with Philadelphia and hopes that they can rejuvenate the team and Jalen Hurts. Dallas, you got a lot to make up for, and you're obviously piggybacking on the chances of Dak Prescott, depending on what his contract is going to basically look like, because now the cap hit has hit, and he's making well over 50. You've got a lot of decisions to make from here. The Commanders, how he's going to rejuvenate this is he's obviously got a top-tier defensive track record, which is what Dan Quinn is known for. But here's the other thing. You've got a running back. You've got weapons. You've got outside of tight end. You've got weapons. Offensive line, you could probably shape it up and make it stronger, however that you can. But Dan Quinn, hopefully Washington, they picked the right quarterback, because from what it sounds like, it could possibly sound like that it could either be Caleb Williams or it could be Drake May. The other news of it is that Cliff Kingsbury, who originally looked like he was set in stone with the Raiders, now withdrew that position, and now he's the offensive coordinator for the Commanders. So there's that's in place. So I think the Commanders have an awful lot of really good options. And I mean, Brian Robinson is a really good running back. I think he'll be primed for a real good year next year. Plus, you also have a really good secondary in Antonio Gibson if you could honestly clean up a little bit of the drop passes or a little bit of the fumbles. But there's always room for improvement. But the other thing is that the offensive line's got to get stronger. But the weapons are really good. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, even if you were just to go and get another receiver, you can, because you can never have enough receivers. Washington is an interesting organization, and it's an interesting look for this year. But I can't wait to see how this Washington team is going to honestly look like. We're in the second year now with this Josh Harris group after Dan Snyder. And this team needed juice. This team needed something. They needed some sort of new identity. Hopefully we're going to get that with Dan Quinn. Hopefully it'll be a stronger defense, because that's what he is he's a strong alpha defensive guy. So, and again, as long as you get the quarterback right, you get the star quarterback, defensive coaches can work. So in this case, they get a star quarterback, and if it looks like it, if they get Caleb Williams, boy, that would just be pure insanity. All right, so I've got a really good friend of mine on. Always love it every time when he comes up onto the show. Never ceases to amaze the moment all the time. But good friend of mine, covers the Patriots, knows a lot about the Bill Belichek history, and we're going to be talking about the new look of the New England Patriots. So my good friend of mine, Bobby Montagna, joining the show. So we're breaking it down from here, my friend, especially with what's been going on with the New England Patriots. Now, I want to start with this, because now all the coaching hires have been filled. and that left out Mike Vrabel and it left out Bill Belichick. I could argue this, that even great coaches like Belichick, sometimes there's always somewhere in between that there's just a hit to where he's literally hit his point. And that happens for great coaches. I mean, look, how long has it been until we saw Bill Walsh was really not going to end up going anywhere? Or how long did it take until Chuck Noll was not going to be the same coach? In your perspective with Bill Belichick, and for as long as you've covered this team, you've told me a lot of bits and pieces of what you've seen that has changed about Bill, but is trending downward. But in this case, I mean, we can't argue the fact that he's still one of the greatest coaches, but is it true to an extent that even great coaches sometimes have their own limits?
I mean, everything comes to an end, you know? Nothing lasts forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like it don't. They had a phenomenal run, and I mean, look at how many rule changes were implemented just because of what, you know, the way, like, how Bill knew the NFL rulebook in and out and took advantage of it. They closed almost every loophole they could because of him, a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And it's I think ultimately what got him is I mean, the draft is a gamble. It's a giant gamble. It is. It's you take your best educated guess at what players you think are going to work, and you kind of just cross your fingers and hope they work. Because if it don't, guess who gets the blame? You, especially if you're the coach and the GM. So you can't say, not my fault, I'm just the coach. No, Bill couldn't do that because he's both. So, but I think what ultimately got him is the league is changing, and it's leaning so far heavy into the offense now. And offense has never been Bill's forte. It's like high-powered offense has never been his forte. He's always been, the short passing game, and you lean on the run, and you win the game with clock management. That's great and all, but if you don't have the right players in the right positions, on a team like that, you're paddling up shit's creek in a leaky boat. Like it's just not going to work. And then you add on top of it, he's never realistically been good at drafting offense. It's never been in his repertoire. It's always been a challenge for him. And then as the league, I think, just got more and more offensive, it just became more and more tough for him to kind of keep up with it. He's still going to go down as one of the greatest coaches to ever step foot on a football field, because it's a team is the sum of its parts, man. Without Brady, Bill wouldn't have. Without Bill, Brady wouldn't have been successful, and without Brady, it was the sum of the parts. Yeah. Bill honed Brady's skills for the first 3 Super Bowls. I would say the first 3 of the Patriots run were more Bill. The last 3 were more Brady.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. That's a good thought of that.
Bill was more involved in the first 3 because it was more establishing the culture of the team and kind of just honing Brady is a maniacal football player. He hates losing, and so does Bill. And Bill kind of just took that chisel and just kind of refined that attitude and that skill set with Brady. He made him who he is. Yeah. And then he just kind of controlled the defense on the last 3. Bill ran the defense, Tom ran the offense. Tom and Josh ran the offense. It was a symbiotic thing. They both handled business. Brady was another coach. He was that good.
And you know what's funny about this? And I explained it, and I'm sure you probably would agree with it for as long as you've watched this team. But it's funny because the thing I mentioned with Belichick is that at the end of the day, a lot of people have been asking, the money question was basically of, was it all Brady or was it all Belichick at the end of the day? Because I could look at it from this kind of standpoint. I mean, you have Tom Brady, who's just an offensive genius and mindset, and a guy that does not like to lose. He hates it. He despises it. And the same with Bill. But I think in this kind of particular, because you're watching coaches right now in today's football, that a lot of them that who exactly pivots more of the championship vibe, the quarterback or the coach. I would feel like that for Belichick for the longest time is that he's so good at being a defensive-minded coach that he knows how to set the defense. He knows how to play the defense. And then when it came to Tom manned a lot of the offense. So when it felt like once Tom left, Bill has no idea about offense. He's hiring a defensive coach as an offensive coordinator, and like it fell off the wagon. Can we agree that maybe to that point, it felt like Belichick was more of the coach than he did of basically being like the real pivot into what the Patriots way was really all about, because it feels a lot like it definitely was stemmed from Tom.
So the Patriot way was Bill's idea, Bill's philosophy. Tom's job was to get everybody to buy in and realize that if we all pull the same direction, it'll work. But we all have to pull the same direction and do it 100%. This is all like Bill's philosophy is all about team. There's no one person more important. It doesn't matter how good or how bad you are. That was the way, and Brady embraced that. And he he embraced it all the way to the end. He embraced it. I'm going to be completely honest. Tom made a lot of people look way better than they really were.
Yes.
So here's my theory on Tom Brady made Josh McDaniels' job easy. Very easy. So when he left and Josh had to actually work and be an offensive coordinator and kind of be like, oh crap, well, now I don't have the greatest quarterback on the planet, so now I got to actually like bury my head in film and be 3 times more involved in this than I actually was over the years. Josh got complacent. Oh yeah. Tom made his life easy.
Yeah. And it is kind of funny about that, because even when you look at Josh McDaniels and, his track record of being a head coach in Denver, he didn't learn from any of his mistakes at all by the time that he ended up going to the Raiders. And it felt like...
And he still didn't learn.
And he was
doing the same crap in L.A. He was doing the same crap in Vegas as he was at Denver. He never learned. Some guys in this league are just not built to be head coaches.
Yeah. I mean, good God, you looked at a whole like overhauls of them. I mean, we saw with, Brandon Staley where he was clearly over his skis and it didn't work. There was even,
and let's be honest, Staley was good at was good as a position coach. He was.
Yes. I mean, as a
he was fine. He was a very good position coach, or, he was a very good. Some guys just don't make good head coaches.
Yeah.
They can't. The head coach encompasses everything, it's some guys just are better at laser focusing on one aspect of the game, and they're good at it.
Yeah.
And as soon as they divert from their lane, you see what happens.
Yeah. And so here's what's funny about that, because I've even talked about this side note, but so Dan Quinn is now the head coach of the Washington Commanders. I feel like this was a real good hire because of the fact of you have somebody with head coaching experience, but he gets his side of the ball right in defense. He's done this with Seattle, and he's done this now with Dallas. So one thing that Washington to consider is that they've lost 2 of their elite pass rushers, and so they're probably going to end up looking for somebody up in free agency or maybe look down the draft because it's not edge rusher friendly this year.
No, it's not defensive line friendly either.
Right. And so in this basis, what is it that he's getting a break from? He's getting a break from the offense because they do have weapons. They do have a really good running back, and I also do think they have a good backup running back that they could use situationally.
Yeah.
Outside, and then they've also have to rejuvenate the offensive line. But the only biggest thing is they've got to get quarterback right. So in your perspective of this as basically watching somebody as a defensive coach, because we've seen defensive coaches literally been deteriorating, but they do make great defensive coordinators is what we've seen, because the overhaul list of them now, as DC openings started to arrive, there's a massive overhaul of them. But I think this is a good break for Dan Quinn, right? If they get the star quarterback that they hope for in the draft, this could be something that could, at the very least, he could fix his side of the ball. And the offense, now with Cliff Kingsbury, they could honestly make some sort of run for next year, right?
You're also leaving one very important aspect of that out. Jerry Jones Dan Quinn is not under Jerry Jones's freaking thumb anymore.
Oh,
because
of course.
let's be honest, every coach in Dallas answers to that guy, no matter how high, or whether you're the janitor or whether you're a coordinator or a head coach, you answer to that man.
Yeah.
Now that he's out from under his Jerry Jones's little claws that he digs into freaking every aspect of that team, I'm curious to see how he'll do without that aspect of stuff, because the Cowboys should have won a Super Bowl by now. With the amount of talent that they've had on those teams, they should have won a Super Bowl. They should have one.
Yeah.
I call it the Jimmy Johnson factor, because Jerry Jones will never, ever, ever be able to swallow his ego enough to put an alpha dog as a coach on that team. And that's what you need with that many egos on a team. You need some guy who's going to walk in there and flip a table and demand respect in a room.
And it's funny
Jerry
because
Jones will never. But that's what I mean. Jerry Jones will never, ever hire a guy like that, because he's always got to be the biggest, baddest dude in the room.
Yep. He's got to protect his brand.
No, he's just got to be the guy on top. He can't. That man is incapable of stepping back and letting somebody else have the reins to the team. Yeah, and that's what you need to do. Look at the good owners, Jake. Look at the owners of the teams that are winning in the league right now. What are they doing? They sign the checks and get the hell out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny
the
because
Hunts in Kansas City, right?
Yep.
Perfect example. What do? They put Andy Reid in charge. They let Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, the offensive and defensive coordinators, do their thing, and they stay the hell out of the way.
Yeah,
right.
And
stay out of the way.
And Brett Veach has even had like his shares as GM, where he's gotten really good quality players. I mean, outside of wide receiver.
But that's what I'm saying. So the good owners and good GMs and good organizations, they hire the football people, and then they step back and just sign the checks.
Yeah. I mean, think of it this way. Dean Spanos finally rewritten the whole narrative now as basically being the owner who doesn't spend more than $15 million on a coach. Now he's finally done that with Jim Harbaugh. And he's already making his presence known, which is insanity. He's got a quality GM. He's got a quality DC. He's got quality people all the way around. And yes, it makes a huge difference when you get the right people in the building.
Yeah, and now the number one thing Spanos needs to do is get the heck out of the way.
Yeah, 100%.
Get out of the way. Take your stupid ass up into your suite and stay there. Don't call the phone. No. If I was Harbaugh, I'd block that dude's number. No, you get no say. You're in charge of the money, you pencil pusher. That's what good owners do. Good owners and good GMs hire the people underneath them that are football people and that they can trust to run the team effectively.
Yes.
And that goes everywhere, Jake. Not just coordinators. That's scouting too. You need scouting people who can pick, and the draft is more. This is a young man's game.
Yeah.
vets are one thing to compliment, but this is a young man's game. You have got to be able to find the young talent in the draft, especially later in the draft as you get, everybody can take a shot in the first or second round. It's the fourth, fifth, and sixth round where, that's where you're going to make or break finding those hidden gems. Right. Julian Edelman, converted quarterback, on the verge of a Hall of Fame guy because of his playoff numbers.
Yeah.
One of the most clutch receivers in the league. One of the best slot receivers in the league.
Yep.
Like, that guy was a quarterback in college.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you got to be able to find guys like that. Those are the teams that win multiple Super Bowls, not just one, and then they like a fart in the wind disappear and you don't hear from them for the next 18 years. They might luck their way into one once every 20, 30, 40 years. Right. The good teams are in it. They're in it annually, and they win one every 6 years. Those are the good teams.
So here's what's funny about that, because the thing here's where I'll ask you as well, because especially when going upon the Patriots. So the Patriots now have promoted Gerard Mayo as now their next head coach. I made this argument that just like Dallas, in some ways, sometimes it's good to have outside voices. It's good to have outside eyes, for a change, because you never know what the generation of football, like, you got to be, I've always stayed behind this saying is you got to be willing to stay current, because technology changes all the time. The social norms change all the time in our society. So, I mean, I'm not saying this is a horrible hire, but what I'm saying is that when you honestly promote somebody internally.
I'll say it. If you're not going to say it, I'll say it. It's a horrible hire. I hate it.
Well,
but I'll give you my reasons. I'll let you go ahead, continue, and I'll tell you why I have serious reservations about it. But continue your thought.
So my thought on this is because for me, when you hire people that are internally, my hope is that one, he's basically learned from the best. He's basically, he's staying current. He sees what the generation of football is today, and it basically has the current mentality of look, this is how we have to basically break this down, right? And sometimes, and I always say it's something like this, because Dallas is like a family thing, because when you have Jerry Jones and you got Stephen Jones, who knows exactly what their level of success really looks like? It looks a lot like more that they're trying to protect their brand in any way, because that's their prices with merchandises, ticket sales, all the rest of it. So when you look at the Gerard Mayo hire, because I thought this was a really interesting one out of left field. How did you feel about this hire, and what are some of the traits and characteristics Gerard Mayo has?
So let's take it back a little bit, right? Like we'll get into the whole Patriots situation, because I take it you don't. I mean, you're in Denver, so you're probably, you're out there in Colorado, so you probably don't. So, according to the Seth Wickersham report that came out, Bill and Bob Kraft have been MFing each other back and forth for 2 seasons now.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jake, it bad, like real bad, like the locker room, the Pats were a toxic organization for the last 2 years, dude. This relationship between Bill and Kraft was a ticking time bomb, dude. It was bad. It was reported that Bill was forced to pick Mac Jones. He didn't want him. You know who he wanted to pick? He was going to draft Davis Mills. Kraft stepped in and said, nope, I want a first-round quarterback. You're going to pick Mac Jones. Forced him to. So that's number one, right? Mm-hmm. Number two, Gerard Mayo signed his head coaching contract a year and a half ago. So he knew he was the guy while Bill was still here.
Oh, wow.
And that contract was signed behind Bill Belichick's back, Jake. Bill found out later after it was signed. So Bill knew the next coach was standing next to him this whole season and half of last year.
Wow, that's insane. I mean, that just basically explains it all about just what, where the coaching ire was going and how that this was basically kind of going about. That's crazy. I never even had known about that with the Gerard Mayo thing, because that's pretty crazy. Because my thought was, if you were going to honestly reunite Mike Vrabel, it better have been worth it. But apparently, if this was already happening behind closed doors, yeah, that's insane. But here's what I think is interesting though, is so we have Gerard Mayo. Oh, I think we lost him here. Uh-oh. I think he might have cut out. Well, once he heads back, that is really interesting though, because I honestly thought that this was basically something that just, sprung out and whatever. But that is really, really weird, that the fact that not even giving somebody like Mike Vrabel at least something, that's crazy. All right, he's back up on there. There you go, man. Got you back up on here. But
hey, man, so
that is
my
crazy.
bad. I get all these, dude. I swear to God, I'm gonna have carpal tunnel by the time I got it. By the time I get done signing all this paperwork, brutal. Oh, dude,
I hear you, man.
I'm losing my mind right now.
No, I hear you, man. But yeah,
but so
insane.
imagine all that going on, Jake, behind the scenes, right? So you have a quarterback that you don't want. Your defensive coordinator is who's going to replace you, and he's standing next to you the whole season. And get this, he was acting a fool this whole year in the locker room because he knew he was the next guy. Dude, it was toxic in that locker room this year and half of last year. It was a bad situation. And Kraft didn't care, because guess what? You know what Kraft wanted? He was trying to force Bill out and get him to quit so he didn't have to pay him his $25 million. And guess what? For all of you guys who are wondering what Bill Belichick makes a year, it's $24.5 million.
That's insane. That is an insane.
So Bob Kraft did all this stuff, Jake, talking behind his back, bashing Bill, like downing him at every chance he gets, right?
Yeah.
He was trying to make his life miserable so Bill would quit, so he didn't have to pay him. But you know what Bill did? He gave him the double freedom rockets and stuck it out. And you know what the Wickersham report said? And this is a direct quote from Bill Belichick saying, I'm going to make him, Bob Kraft, make the first move. Fire me.
Wow.
I'm the head coach of this team until you tell me otherwise. He made him fire him. He made him fire him.
Yeah, that's insane. And we knew that, like, the both of them, I mean, we knew that the both of them were basically bucking heads, but that's crazy though, that the fact that this was literally going on, and then this really did push a lot more for Belichick's, his departure. But,
dude, I'm surprised he didn't leave sooner. I'm surprised he didn't throw his hands up and say, you know what, I'm done. Goodbye.
Oh, I know. Well, and I think part of that reason is because, like we talked about before, he was eyeballing the most wins as a head coach. I think that was his thing.
Dude, that's the crazy part is he's 15 away.
Yeah.
He's 15 away.
Yeah.
I mean, you get on a team like, you put him on a team like the Cowboys that's already built to go. That's maybe 1 season, 2 seasons,
Yeah.
You can't tell me, Bill.
Saigon, you just missed it. We literally were talking about Gerard Mayo and the thought of the hire with my good friend Bobby Montagna, Beantown Breakdown, and a fellow friend of ours here on Sports Wave Network. But yeah,
So let's talk Gerard, right? Like,
yeah.
Here's why I have massive reservations, right? One, because of the way Gerard was conducting himself in the locker room, knowing that he's the next guy and still being an asshole. Not cool. Not cool. You could have done that. You could have conducted yourself a lot more professional. That ain't cool. That's strike one. strike two, you're looking at Mike Vrabel with 6 years of head coaching experience, and he took that sack of crap Ryan Tannehill to an AFC title game.
Yes.
And you're telling me you're going to pick a guy who has no head coaching experience and is a massive, like, throwing darts in the dark risk over Vrabel? What?
Yeah. That was and again, I couldn't even believe it when I still saw Vrabel's name up on there. But it is interesting because I even talked about it in my last episode, is I think that this was a good thing for Vrabel to really take a year off, because it's not that he can't coach. I think that if you put him in the right places, then, I mean, if I'm him, I'm eyeballing the Buffalo job, because at that
100%, dude.
At that
100%.
point, you're facing New England twice a year. You're going to clown around, the Dolphins twice a year, and then you've also got Aaron Rodgers with the Jets twice a year. So I'm like, that would be, if all things fail for Don McDermott, I could totally see him being there in Buffalo.
100%, 100%.
So here's what's funny about this. So talking about this of the Patriots roster. So, of course, with the new head coaching hire, it's going to be really interesting how things look. But the Patriots had the third pick in the draft. Now, my big thing is you've got to get a quarterback, because apparently at this point, this is not working with Mac Jones.
As much as I want Marvin Harrison, and that dude is going to be a superstar in this league. Right? As much as I want that guy, without a quarterback to throw to him, you're like I said earlier, you're friggin' paddling up Schitt's Creek with a leaky boat in your hand with no paddle.
Yeah.
Like it's the quarterback is the general on the field. That is the most important position on the field. As much as I want Marvin Harrison Jr., we need a quarterback. And if they run it back with Mac Jones, they're stupid. They're stupid. I would rather have them go out and get a guy like Kirk Cousins instead of Mac. You know what I mean? I'd rather see them I'd rather see them take a guy like Gardner Minshew or Kirk Cousins and get Marvin Harrison on this team and work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now that would be interesting if that is the case, that the New England Patriots are literally willing to go with like a veteran quarterback who's already in this league, who's been through, a bunch of different systems, and is somebody that could honestly, change up the offense. Because that is the problem now, is that they've been so defensive reliant that they forgot that this is an offensive centric league. I mean,
the league is leaning so far to one side now towards the offense that it's just they don't have the talent to compete anymore.
Yeah, and it's like,
and they don't have the talent. One, they don't have the talent to compete, and two, they don't have a quarterback that's good enough to elevate mid-tier talent anymore.
Oh, that's right.
That's the problem.
And the funny thing is outside of Ramondre Stevenson, who really can I trust on this offense? It's like
I know. And to be honest, I trust Zeke over Ramondre, because at least Zeke is an Iron Man and never gets hurt.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing of it is, I mean, look at how much of the load he had to carry. I mean, compared to what it was in Dallas.
With an absolute garbage offensive line, you know what Zeke averaged per carry last year for the Pats? 4.2.
Yeah. I mean,
4.2 behind a garbage offensive line. He's still got it, dude. Elliott still is a good, hard-nosed, big running back.
Yeah.
4.2 is, dude, 3 times, hand on the ball 3 times, and that's a first down.
Yeah. So Sagan asked a question basically saying, what's Jones' contract like right now? I think this is the part. I think this is the contract part of it where they decline it, right? Yeah.
This is the 5th-year option, and I don't think they picked it up, or this coming year. I think this is his last year.
I think they plan to decline it. Yeah.
This is his last year, because they didn't pick his 5th-year option up.
Right. Yeah. So this will basically be his final year. So it depends on it from there. how they really kind of manage things. But yeah, I just kind of see it that this has all been kind of burnt out right now with Mac Jones.
You know what? You know what I'd do with Mac Jones? I'd go get Charlie McAvoy and Matt Grzelcyk from the Bruins, and I'd have them toss his ass out of Foxborough Stadium with his key fob.
Even with the smarts that he has.
Yeah, I'm serious. I would have the Bruins, Charlie McAvoy and Matt Grzelcyk toss his ass out the club. Up yours, guy. Get out of here.
Jeez. So my final thought before letting go is, of course, with this being, this is just going to be a very interesting look for the Patriots. I can't wait to really see it, for next season. Hopefully, my only hope is that this is built for something different, because this is what they're going to need. I mean, 20 years of success has been a long time, and then eventually it hits its peak. But when I think about this with Bill Belichick, is that I felt like it's exactly as how we felt when it came to Nick Saban, is because Saban is a great coach, but the difference between him and Bill is that at least with Saban, he's an alpha, but he loves his kids, loves every single one of the athletes that have ever came to University of Alabama, and he used a lot of them, like throughout the trenches.
I found it very interesting that Saban paced out as fast. As soon as that NIL deal hit and it leveled the playing field, and everybody, that NIL deal stuff where, it leveled the playing field. And now Nick Saban doesn't have any advantage. And so you know what? I think he looked at it and was like, "Yeah, I'm good."
So that was my thought with it, is because now college football has basically pivoted in a different direction, because now you have the 100%. NIL, you've got the transfer portal, and I think the transfer portal really did kill Saban in the end, because
it did.
Because it's not keeping any of his Alabama players. So it's like now he's retired, he's not keeping up with this. So because now you got Ole Miss, you've got Michigan, you've got Ohio State, you've got a lot of these other programs. Now
think about this, right? Yeah. Think about this too, right? Like the transfer portal. If you're an Alabama player, let's say you get recruited to Alabama and you go there.
Yep.
And just, dude, that's an NFL factory. That's
100%.
Mm-hmm. So think about this. Let's say you're a mid-level player there. Are you going to stay if you're not getting the playing time when you got recruited? No, you're leaving. Goodbye. I'm going to go to Oklahoma, where I can start and possibly get a job in the NFL.
Right. Yeah, of course. And so this is where it comes to my point when it comes to Bill Belichick, is because now with a lot of things that are basically innovating and they're changing, Belichick not once. Now, we did say in Atlanta, because he was there with Arthur Blank, they had lunch, they were, trying to maybe potentially get a deal. But it went another route. They went with somebody who's familiarized, Raheem Morris. But there's also been really, really good positive thoughts on Raheem Morris than there has of Belichick. And I think
he can relate to the younger athletes. That's why they picked him.
Exactly. So now, because it obviously seems like Belichick's taking a year off. Is part of this going to be a reflection period for Belichick? Because obviously New England and the years and all the rest of the stuff they've dealt with, that's basically now out. Now,
allow me to answer that question. No, because Bill's an a-hole. Bill is an asshole. And he's never going to change. And Bill is never, ever, ever going to change. If he's coming back into the NFL, his system that he developed, he's going to want as much say as they're willing to give him. And in today's NFL, he's not going to get that. He's not going to get the same deal as he did in New England. No, that's not going to happen. I think that was part of the reason why he's like, well, if I'm not going to get control and I can't run my system the way I want to run it and have total control, no, I'm good.
Yeah. No, that was initially the thought, because it was one of two routes. Because let's say hypothetically that he was able to basically pick open a book, even if he basically read, offensive centric league for dummies or whatever. Just hypothetically,
Yeah.
speaking, if he literally read that book and he stayed current in this, then maybe there would be a chance there might be a phone call. But
Yeah.
if not, and this is like we're basically looking at it, this is who Bill is, then I think this now becomes. I think this is basically where we've ended the road with Belichick, right?
Yeah. Yep. You got to remember, dude, Bill's a dinosaur. He is. Everything about him is super old school. It is. It's super old school. The guy is a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he doesn't do stuff conventionally. He doesn't. He's one to buck the system. But that's the problem. See, like Bill needed to take his system and adapt it to today's. I would never say change it because it worked, but you do need to tweak it to today's NFL, and that's where I think he went awry.
Yeah.
He never adapted and survived. It was Bill was the dinosaur that got smoked by the asteroid. So like it's just he had to adapt, and that might have been too challenging for him to do,
Yeah. Well, and sometimes especially when when technology is innovating very quickly, social norms are innovating very quickly. I mean, you got to be able to adapt just like that. And unfortunately, sometimes, and it's not to say that we don't have a love for some of our for some of our old school coaches, but it's like things have changed now. Things have basically changed, and so it'll be really interesting to see how next season really does pan out. But again, I only hope for success for this, but I wouldn't be surprised when it comes to this is what it's happening internally. It's what I basically say about Dallas. Sometimes you need outside eyes. Sometimes you need outside perspectives to really, really pivot for an organization to be on the same level. So, but it'll be interesting. Well, Bobby, I appreciate you taking the time, man. You guys can find Bobby Montagna on Beantown Breakdown. He will have his show soon, as of course, got a lot of things brewing up.
Oh yeah, all my streaming equipment's all packed up in some box. I don't know where it's at. Forgot to label it. So it's in one of the 65 boxes I have somewhere.
But he will definitely be back bigger and better than ever. Can't wait to see your show soon, man. Appreciate you. Don't know what we do without you here up on Sports Wave Network, man. Definitely the guy with behind the voice, and of course, always the fun shenanigans he has here.
Oh, we're all about the shenanigans. You know how I am.
Yeah. All righty, man. Appreciate you taking the time. Have a good one and stay safe out there.
You too, big guy. Have a good one. Talk to you later.
Well, there you go, guys. Bobby Montagna, Beantown Breakdown. And that is interesting, though, because it does come back to the point of basically what was happening in just everything internally with the whole front office. And again, sometimes, and I've always said this with Dallas, is the more you think so heavily on internally, it's crazy. And so, to me, outside perspectives is always a good thing. Now, remember, the outlier here, I think the Spanos have done the right thing, getting somebody who's familiarized with the organization, Jim Harbaugh. But Harbaugh, they, at the very least, opened the control board for him to go and hire the best quality guys he can. And I think he has. And he's still hiring guys up to this point. So he's already, and from recent news, they've already gotten Jesse Minter. They've already gotten his son, Jay Harbaugh. They've also are hiring on Greg Roman. It's undetermined whether or not he will be the offensive coordinator. Some are saying he is. Some are, we're not clearly sure with. And then they get the pass game coordinator from Philadelphia, Marcus Brady. So he is putting together an entire quality, and yet which is mixed with physical attitude and winning championship mentality. That's what you got to have. The Patriots, when you start thinking internally with Gerard Mayo, and I got nothing against the guy. I thought he was a great defensive player when he played. But You got to be able to translate that to where you can be a culture setter, you can be a culture pivoter. So you got to be able to man this to where you can be able to succeed for the long run. So, but I thought that was great stuff. I couldn't even believe that this was literally what was happening behind closed doors this whole time with the Gerard Mayo thing, that they already gave him a contract. They already given him this, and they were just waiting to push Bill out of the building. That's insane. But sometimes it happens. If you're not willing to adapt and you're unwilling to basically adapt to new technologies, sometimes that does happen. You kind of find yourself falling behind on, a few things. So it is interesting. So I'm not sure how it will basically pan out, but it will be interesting to see how it looks. But I'm hoping that the Patriots do the right thing, but wouldn't be surprised, especially when it comes to an internal hire. We'll take a quick break from here, but we'll definitely talk a little bit more. And we're going to also talk about, and of course, we got one of our good friends that's in the chat right now, loves the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to talk about Mike MacDonald, because I do think this was a really interesting hire for Seattle. And again, they've got a young coach, but not sure if he's basically, I'm sure he's proven on defense. But what will this mean for their offense? And is this something that Seattle really has to address upstairs? We'll talk about that here in just a moment. So as I've talked about before, guys, because I have literally been on this thing for a very long time, BetUS is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. As we've been saying for days and days and days, but don't miss out on the opportunity. When you sign up at BetUS, in the description, you'll get yourself a 125% bonus when you sign up. With 30 risk-free bets, they've got the best and the most reliable sports book online and competing up with some of the best of the best. But they give you a bunch of really good lines to choose from, prop bets, parlay cards, single straight bets, so much more. It's one of the reasons BetUS is one of the best, and they've been doing this for over 30 years. So you don't want to end up missing out on the great opportunity that BetUS has in store, especially with the Super Bowl that lines out. Look up on the sports book, or even have some fun on the casino play as well. They've also got that with free plays and so much more. That's BetUS.com. Link in the description. 125% bonus and so much more with BetUS. BetUS, where the game begins.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Key Williams and Dante Criswell star in 7200 Seconds podcast Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Don't lose your seat today when you use the most trustworthy ticketing app right now. Online, download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. That is SeatGeek.com. When you go and you head to checkout for your tickets, wherever it may be. Maybe it may be in the Super Bowl. Maybe it might be to your favorite concert with your favorite artist, or it could be your favorite comedy show. Wherever your next event is, use promo code SnakeSports for $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket. That's a hell of a deal. Go on to SeatGeek.com, promo code SnakeSports for $20 off of your purchase. All right, so I started thinking about this while we were up on break. So of course, with all the coaching hires basically going on, and we know that we've got Super Bowl week, and I'll be talking an awful lot about that. I got a lot planned on this week. Got good friends of mine that are out there in my hometown in Vegas. I'm excited about it. It should be an interesting Super Bowl, and we'll see what, Allegiant Stadium is going to look like. So, here's what I will say about the Seattle Seahawks and what they have been for the last few years. Okay, so Seattle, I've watched them since the Matt Hasselbeck years and Sean Alexander and Nate Burleson and so many more. Okay, I've grown up long enough to basically seeing what the Seahawks are, what they've been. They've always been a middle of the pack NFC team. Always have. Once Pete Carroll arrived, now remember, Pete Carroll has had a track record where he has bounced from NCAA and to the NFL. In the NFL, he did not have much success until he arrived in Seattle. Reasonably. One of the things that was great about Pete Carroll is that he had the ability to basically adapt, like most coaches that you see. Andy Reid, he's very adaptable to new technologies and to also new football. It's new information. We have yet to see that with Jim Harbaugh. My hope is I hope he does, because this is one guy that loves to recruit guys that love to play, guys that are tough, and guys that basically they want to win a championship. John Harbaugh, for a long time, he's even had to, adapt. Only thing I'm questionable about in Pittsburgh is if Mike Tomlin, now hiring Arthur Smith, is that they at least get the offensive side of the ball right. Because defensively, they could be great on any given Sunday. But the offensive side of the ball hasn't been great. So for Seattle, I understood it with, Pete Carroll moving on from it, because this has been a long time. 10 years in the organization. You got 2 Super Bowl appearances, winning one of them. Should have been 2. But Seattle's built a culture where it was Legion of Boom. It was all branched on Russell Wilson, but it was mostly on Pete Carroll's ability to draft, build, and develop. Now, the hard part is they don't look like, and again, I'm not bashing on Geno Smith, but Geno Smith had a down year this year. But he even took a guy that first year he started as quarterback. Now that once Russell Wilson was traded to Denver, he took that quarterback, and that quarterback ended up getting him into the playoffs. They may not have gotten far, but they plugged them into the playoffs. But the one thing Seattle's really, really good at is that they are very good at player personnel. Because not only did they draft Kenneth Walker, who was a big-time hit, and I hope for a rebound this year, but they went and got Zach Charbonnet. They got Jackson Smith and Jigba. They've got players all around. They've got weapons. They got a run game. They got something. The offensive line, I would say, needs a little bit of improvement. But outside of that, they've had some guys. And Bobby Wagner came back. So I think this whole thing with Seattle is that they're branched on one thing. They've always been a middle-of-the-pack organization in the NFC, because they'll go toe-to-toe with Philadelphia at any given week. They'll go to toe-to-toe against New Orleans, Philadelphia, Detroit, and they'll play their best. That's usually how it was for them. So Mike MacDonald, former defensive coordinator for Baltimore, comes into Seattle. He gets the Seattle job. which is really interesting because my only thought, I would have liked it if Dan Quinn reunited with Seattle because he knows the staff, knows the system, and he's also mastered the defensive side of the ball when they had the Legion of Boom. Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Byron Maxwell, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright. There were so many really, really good players. I mean, hell, Cliff Averill. So, Mike MacDonald, and nothing against him, but he does produce a really good defense. I mean, Justin Madubuike, really, really good pass rusher and disruptor of the offensive side. Really is an offensive disruptor. You had Patrick Queen. You've also have Roquan Smith, part of that whole thing, knows how to basically man the linebackers to where they get to. They got to go after whoever's got the football in their hands. And usually they know how to get to the quarterback. Plus the secondaries, I mean, you had Marlon Humphrey. You had a couple of really good quality corners. And then you also developed Kyle Hamilton, who was also a sneaky pick in the draft. So Mike MacDonald, I don't think he's necessarily a terrible hire. He's obviously mastered his side of the ball on defense. But like we've always said, like when we had Bobby on, was it's driven so big on offense now that defensive coaches, you lose a star quarterback, you don't know how to adapt to it. You kind of lose faith, you lose focus, and it doesn't work. So I think Mike MacDonald, my hope is that it does work. He's a young coach, and John Snyder, the owner, they're going to work this out. They're going to figure this out. But they're going to get quality players in this building. The one thing is that they've got to get a quarterback because Geno Smith, he's been so far from, where he started at, which is nothing against Geno because we've seen what the Jets were. Okay. The Jets were, and they still are. Geno's bounced around. He's been quite the journeyman, but Geno's not your future plan. So as I've always said, and I've always had this thought with Seattle, is I felt like that if you're out of range to draft a quality quarterback, because they probably won't even be able to get their hands on. They're not going to get Caleb Williams. They're not going to get Drake May. They're certainly not going to get Jaden Daniels. So that only leaves Bo Nix and Michael Penix. So, but even for those, there are some of those teams that are in the middle of the pack that if you look at the draft list, these are what basically these teams are. So Seattle, you can make a case in point that let's say Chicago does draft Caleb Williams. Why not maybe go and pursue potentially Justin Fields? Now, I'm not saying that this would be a huge upgrade over Geno Smith, but what does this do? This gives Justin Fields, like most quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield and a couple of others who have had the one thing that I've said about it is usually where you land really, really does matter. But if they go and let's say they do acquire Justin Fields, my thing of it is change of scenery is great. It's great for anybody. Change of scenery at work. You go to a different job now. Sometimes it's always good to have a change of scenery when it comes to a workplace because you may go from a bad management to a good management to where nobody's really breathing down your throat. Sometimes it's also good to go from a bad, toxic relationship to maybe somebody who is willing to give the world to you, which is the most important thing. Maybe it is a good thing that if Justin Fields, if made available, because I've seen exactly how this could work for Seattle. I don't know why people don't really talk about it this much. Now, again, and I don't know if you agree with me, Saigon, on this, but think about it this way. Here's my point with this with Justin Fields. Justin Fields can obviously run the ball. We know he can. We also know that he can throw the ball. The problem of it is, and what paints the picture so bad, is because Chicago sucks at offense. They've always sucked on offense, but their defenses has always been great. The difference is Seattle's got weapons. Yes, they've got a tight end, Noah Fant. They've got weapons. They got DK, they got Jackson Smith and Jigba, and they also got Tyler Lockett. They've also got a run game where Justin Fields doesn't have to primarily be relied on to basically save the franchise. It is kind of interesting. And yes, this is exactly it. Fields would be like a kid in a candy store or a toy store. He's got so many toys to play. Of course, he's got so many toys to play with. And then on top of all of that, MacDonald, who's basically great at defense. He knows how to pick out defensive, like quality defensive players. But the point of this is because you're in a division in the NFC West where San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan, they are always competitive. And so is Sean McVay and the Rams. And the Rams surprised a lot of people. You could probably get past Arizona because we all know Arizona's story. But then you look at the other teams outside looking in. Think about it this way. I will be impressed if this was the case, that if Justin Fields landed in Seattle and he goes toe-to-toe with Jared Goff in Detroit, he goes toe-to-toe with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, and he goes toe-to-toe even with, New Orleans, a Tampa, or even, Los Angeles, the Rams, or the Niners. If he goes toe-to-toe with either of those teams, that 10-28 record, that narrative would be out the door if that was the case. Because you want the best for a lot of your players, and especially quarterbacks. Because this whole narrative with Justin Fields is does he work? Maybe he doesn't work. We don't have enough weapons for him. The offensive line. Chicago sucks at offense. I have real good content creators that cover the Chicago Bears. They would say the same exact thing. They've never pivoted to offense. They've been stuck on that 1950s, 1960s television that kept saying, monsters of the Midway, defense is the way. No, it isn't. Look at how badly things collapsed in New England. It was bad. You think defense was the answer? Not always. You needed to work your side of the ball. The other thing was the Chargers, they spent that much money on defense. Once you got the wrong head coach, everything collapsed. You got to find a way to pivot to get the offense right. But this is my thing about it. I think change of scenery is always good. Justin Fields ends up landing in a place like this. Weapons, run game, trustworthy defense. Not only that, but maybe a head coach that can relate to his young players. So I'm just saying, I'm looking at all the possibilities from here because all the news that's pointed out is that Caleb Williams, like his camp, so it's not big. It's only consists of some of his family members, his dad, who's a very strong personality guy, and his agents, everybody all associated, are saying that they don't want to play for Chicago. They're not anti-Chicago, but they are very skeptical about the front offices, the coaching staff, and then basically what their recency of their franchise has been. So I don't blame him for this. We saw this with Eli Manning. We saw this with a lot of players. They were very skeptical about certain organizations. And of course, they do have a right to have a voice. They have a right to, express that. And if that's the case, teams should honestly listen and should start to get with the program. But if this happens, that Chicago goes and draft Caleb Williams, you have to guarantee it that it's the best. But then that also brings up mixed emotions for Justin Fields, which is why if I am Seattle, because by the time, I'm telling you right now, there are a bunch of teams that are basically in the mix that are going to want to draft quarterbacks. But this is, of course, is whether Seattle wants to end up trading to go upward to going and getting their quarterback, if that's the case, or if they feel like, we don't want to end up screwing up our draft. Like, we don't want to end up screwing up a bunch of our draft picks. We've got some guys. We need to fill in some holes. Maybe we go and get somebody for at least cheaper, and then it makes all sense. So, and then maybe this could be a good thing. Maybe then Seattle would end up getting on the phone with Chicago and said, hey, if you're really trying to go and draft Caleb Williams, we'd be happy to end up taking Justin Fields off your hands. Because then that's doing Justin Fields a solid with this. So I'm just opening up possibilities. I'm not saying that this could be a potentially happening, but it's a possibility. And again, I think Justin Fields would love this. I think he would love. I think in the case scenario, he'd be obviously staying in the NFC, but he would be in a much better, comfortable situation, and he would also be in a well-ran franchise that has been middle of the pack for years. They've been to the playoffs like almost every single year, and they work. So, what's to say that's not a great destination? Seriously. I've done the numbers. I basically have done up like the play schemes because Seattle does like to run the football. Last time I checked, they don't pass it a ton. They like to run the football. And that's where I think it's very, very interesting. So that's what I'm saying. But this is the thing though. Geno, obviously, he's not. Hate to burst people's bubbles, but Geno Smith is not the guy that's going to guarantee you to get to the Super Bowl. Neither is Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock could give you wins on any given Sunday. That's different. He can because he's beaten the Eagles, and he could give you something. But at the same time, I'm looking at Drew Lock, and I'm just like, he's a good, serviceable quarterback. I could use a Drew Lock. I could use a Gardner Minshew. I could use a Teddy Bridgewater. I could use a couple of these quality guys whenever my star quarterback goes down. I'm telling you, I'm just looking out for the possibilities from here. But I do think it is very, very interesting to watch out for and to really kind of keep in mind. Because if that happens, you know where this came from. So, all righty, folks, that's going to do it here for me on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Appreciate everybody being on here. Good to have you all on. Thanks for joining us here on a Monday night. Had a lot of really, really good stuff. Shout out to Bobby Montagna, being with us tonight. Appreciate him taking the time and really expressing about the Patriots with what their road is going to look like with Gerard Mayo. Appreciate you all being here tonight. Thank you so much for joining. This show is sponsored by BetUS. When you sign up today, in the description below, 125% bonuses with 30 risk-free bets, especially when we got Super Bowl right around the corner. So, absolutely love this kind of deal. I've made a couple of bets myself and absolutely love what the lines that BetUS gives us on a daily. So, check it out for yourself and experience it for yourself. At the BetUS Sportsbook, BetUS.com, BetUS where the game begins, and also by SeatGeek. Don't lose your seat with SeatGeek. Whether it's your next event, whether it's the Super Bowl, or whether it's your next concert with your favorite artist, or wherever your next event may be. SeatGeek's got you covered, the most reliable ticketing app on your mobile device to Google Play in the App Store. Download it today, and when you do, use promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket as a way of saying thank you for relying on us on SeatGeek, and I hope you enjoy your next event. SeatGeek.com, promo code SNAKESPORTS. That is SeatGeek.com, promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off. Have a great night, everybody, and we will see you on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Sayonara.